It's time to go into business for yourself. Get ready for another episode of the Franchise Academy Podcast. Education, insight, and inspiration. Here's your host, small business and franchise expert, Tom Scarda.
Welcome to another episode of the Franchise Academy. This is a podcast that touches everything franchising. Exciting podcast today, but before I tell you about that, in case you don't know who I am, my name is Tom Scarda. I'm a franchise consultant, been consulting for 15 years. I've owned and operated my own franchises, did really well in my first one, totally failed in my second one, but that's what made me a franchise expert. I wrote all about it in my book called Franchise Savvy, and so I help people understand if franchising is for them or not. It's not for everyone. And I have someone who's been doing it even longer than me. My buddy Jeff Shafritz is on the podcast with me today. Jeff has been in franchising since he got out of college, so it's about 25 years, although he doesn't look that old. He worked for all sorts of outfits that you know, and not that I want to read his bio to you, but we'll talk about all of this. Jeff shares his knowledge from all of his experience in franchising. He's also owned and operated his own franchises, so just a wealth of information. And he has worked with the Athlete's Foot back in the early 2000s, a brand that you may know. And Jeff is also a mega sports enthusiast, which we'll also probably talk about here a little bit today. So, Jeff, welcome to the podcast.
Tom, thanks so much for having me on. I really appreciate it. I've been wanting to come on. I'm excited, elated to come on to the podcast with you.
Elated? That sounds like an SAT word to me.
It is an SAT. That might be the only SAT word I got right, actually. That's why I remember it. Right.
Hence we're in franchising instead. What the heck?
Well, yeah, it's crazy. 15 years we've known each other. So that's
Right. Yeah, we first met in 2005. At the franchise meeting. It was the 5-year anniversary, and it was my first conference, but it was a black tie affair. I had to rent a tuxedo. And I was like, man, do we have to do this like every conference?
Yeah, it's a good thing we didn't. I can't believe I've been here longer than you, actually, which is amazing. I started year 2. I've had a franchise. I've been around forever. So
wow.
Yeah.
What year did you start with franchise?
2002, April.
2002. Oh my God.
So
I had in 2000 I bought Maui Wowie Smoothies through Carol, who was working with Franchise at the time. So for the people listening, Franchise is a franchise consulting group, and there's about 70 of us around the country that are handpicked because of our franchise expertise and experience. You can't buy in. It's not a franchise itself, but we're actually handpicked, which I'm really proud of. And so we work with folks all over the country, but they act as franchise, acts as kind of the back end to what we do. They take care of the relationships with the franchisors. They do the pre-screening. They handle all the legal work, all that kind of stuff that I don't like to deal with at all. Yeah. And then Jeff and I are out on the front lines talking to people that are frustrated with their career, people that cringe at the thought of going to work in the morning, people that want to diversify their investments, whatever it might be, whatever the reason is. We help people figure out if it's for them, and if it is, which is the right concept. So not to take time away, Jeff, but tell us a little bit about your experience. I mean, let me ask you this quick question. Does anybody ever ask you what's the hottest franchise out there?
Yeah, and I've talked to so many people, the consultants and friends, and it's such a funny question to me coming from the industry, because it doesn't really matter if it's hot or trendy if it doesn't fit your skill sets and your investment parameters and all of the characteristics you want from a business. So sometimes trendy is okay, sometimes it's not okay, but ultimately the business has to work for you. And I can tell you there are a lot of businesses I know for sure that are popular brands, even if they're good companies. If I ran them, it would be a disaster.
Right.
You know, I know my limitations and what I'm good at and what I'm not good at. So
right. Or what you want to do and not want to do with your days. I mean, that's a big thing. I mean, whenever somebody asks me that question, I always say, well, it's kind of like, it's subjective. It's like saying, who is the best looking person in Hollywood? I don't know. Some people like blonde. Some people like brunette. Some people like people who cook. People like other things. You know, it's like it's so hard to determine because it's a personal thing. Just like a franchise, you know, when we had our Super Suppers franchise, it is a place where people made meals in bulk. So they would come to our location, make meals, take them home, and freeze them on days when they're busy. They would throw it in the oven, have a home-cooked meal. So by virtue of that business model, we had to work nights and weekends. I didn't think about that going into it. It was like all of a sudden we're in it, and we're like, wow, we want to be home with the kids, you know, and they're home watching Friends and Seinfeld on Thursday night. It was going back a long time ago. And we are in the damn store helping customers.
That's the worst.
It's terrible.
I use that all the time. You know, I'll be on the phone with an engineer, an accountant, and you know, hey, you know, what hours, you know, do you want to work? Well, Monday through Friday, you know, normal business hours. I don't mind working hard though, you know, but you know, kind of want my weekends and evenings free. And you know, what kinds of employees are you, you know, most comfortable? Well, white collar employees. That's it. That's the only type of employees. And yet they're asking me about this new pizza place that if they brought it from Chicago to Michigan, you know, it would kill it. And I'm like, it might kill it, but it's going to kill you. and you're going to be really, really unhappy. And it's not going to kill it because you're not going to want to be there when you need to be there, basically. So
right. Well said, Jeff. I mean, the thing, I mean, we owned the first franchise we owned was Maui Wowie Smoothies. And we sold it in 2005. Somewhere around 2012 or something like that, someone opened up a Maui Wowie smoothie store here in my town, you know, on Long Island where I live.
Hmm.
So we went there. They have great smoothies, by the way. And so I was talking to the owner. I didn't say who I was. And I just asked a simple question. Why did you choose this franchise? And the lady just gushed. We love smoothies. We drink smoothies all the time. This is like the perfect thing for us. I'm like, okay, great. Good luck. And as we walked out, I turned to my wife. I said, unfortunately, they're going to be out of business in less than a year.
Yeah.
And it was really only about 9 months they closed up.
Well, it's crazy because it's not about what you love as a end user. It's about what you love to do in the business. That's what's important. What do you like to do when you wake up every day and go into work? Do you like talking with people? Do you like sales? Do you like, you know, leading teams? You know, whatever it might be that you like, that's what, and you're good at, that's what you need to play to, not, man, I love smoothies. You know, that's,
right.
That's tough. I mean, let me help you find a business that can give you unlimited amount of smoothies. You
Right.
can even buy your own smoothie machine. With this other business, that's a better fit for you. So.
Right. So funny, but that's the truth. I mean, my number one thing to say to people is, whatever you do, don't become infatuated with the franchise. So many people, you know, you've probably had this experience where people, they're on vacation somewhere and they see something. They're like, oh, wow, there's nothing like that in my neighborhood.
Yeah.
Have you ever ran into that scenario?
All the time. Yeah, all the time. I literally yesterday, not yesterday, it was Saturday. So Friday, I was on the phone with somebody and he booked a call with me. And, you know, I started the call and he said, well, I want to call him my friend. And it was, you know, the first conversation we had. And I'm telling them about what we do and how we operate. And, you know, he just said, you know, this isn't exciting me. I wanted you to excite me. And I go, how do you want me to excite you? Like he wanted me to say to him, this is the hottest franchise and you need to buy this franchise because it would be unbelievable if you opened this franchise in your city. And I knew nothing about the gentleman. I didn't know how much money he had. I didn't know what his skill sets were. I didn't know what his interests were. I didn't know any characteristics that were important to him. But he wanted me to just tell him, hey, these are the 3 best franchises. And I said, hey, if you want, I can tell you franchises, but that makes no sense because what's hot might be a horrible fit for you. So, you know, that's the one thing that I would say that, is frustrating sometimes is that they want, people sometimes want a magic bullet, and there is no magic bullet because, as you said earlier, the same thing's not right for everybody, basically.
No,
So,
no, it's really not. And it's really tough to share that with people because you always hear the phrase, if you love your job, you never work a day in your life. And that's true if you're working a job. But if you're running a business is a lifestyle. It's not a job. And you'll end up hating it if you are trying to pay your bills with whatever, your hobby is or your passion or whatever. It's not the way to do it.
no, for sure. And there are times where something can work out, but, it's really rare, I would say. You don't want to mix your hobby with your business. You begin to really dislike your hobby. You really do when you can't enjoy your hobby because that's when everybody else is doing it. Yeah. And you're in your business, basically. Right. So you have no time to enjoy your hobby. You begin to really dislike your hobby at that point, and it becomes frustrating. So
it happens really quick.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, you finish.
Well, I was going to say, this year, for example, a lot of the businesses that I think have been fantastic are the essential service franchises that a lot of individuals are thriving in right now. And they didn't even think that was an opportunity when we started talking, or they wouldn't have thought about it, but they were great fits. Marketing is having people call them, they're leading teams, they're not swinging the hammer or whatever. And those things are doing really, really well. Plus it gives them more of a Monday through Friday lifestyle. So that's not right for everybody either, but it's just interesting because, some of the things that do really well are the things that aren't sexy or trendy or, the hottest new thing around, basically. Right.
And it turns out that those are usually the best franchises to have are the things that are not sexy.
Yeah.
And the non-sexy businesses are needed and not wanted. I always tell people at the beginning of our conversations that, what you'll find as we work together is that the less sexy the business, the more money it makes.
Yeah.
And also understand that the businesses that we work with, for the most part, are manager-run businesses, meaning that you're the CEO and the CFO of the business. You're not doing the task, whatever it might be. Exactly. Some people get hung up on that too. Would you agree?
Yeah, I would agree, and that's the big thing. It's really just a widget or a service or what have you, and at the end of the day, so it's whatever system works best for you. And you're not going to be the person, as I said, swinging the hammer or fixing the pipes or those kinds of things. You're the one who's directing everything and managing the team. And what I like about those opportunities too, and they're great storefront options as well, but with those opportunities you also can grow with people and trucks. And so instead of spending another $300,000, $400,000 to open your second location, you're putting another truck on the road. You're hiring one more employee. Maybe if you're growing really big, you buy the territory next door, but your infrastructure is already in place. You don't have to build out anything. Right. I just think there's a lot of opportunities in that industry for those types of services. So,
totally agree. So you were in your own business for a while. You had your own franchise. Is that right? Could you tell us about that?
I did, and I will. I basically started Franchoice in 2002. Around 2007, I really wanted an opportunity where I could diversify and build something without being there all the time, put a manager in place and manage the manager, but still do what I do. Because I love what I do, and B, that's, my primary income. And so I found a fitness franchise that was designed to be manager run from the start. And, not to say I didn't work at it. I obviously, had to go there and make sure the culture was right and the manager was doing a good job and oversee the marketing and the books. But I didn't need to be there, Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. So, I was able to run the business and it was great. And, I had an opportunity 5 years later. I was up for renewal, about to buy treadmills, and the company was looking to buy some capital. They just got some private equity money, and they called me up and they said they wanted to buy my store. And I was like, fantastic. That doesn't normally happen, but that does lead into something about business ownership that is different from a job, which is not only can you make money along the way, but hopefully at the end of the rainbow, you can sell it for more than you paid for it, and also realize a nice bit of equity and have a pot of gold, so to speak, at the end of the rainbow. So that's what I was able to do, and it was really nice for me. So
I think that's a really awesome distinction that you made, because a lot of people don't understand that you're not going into business to replace your salary and it's just another job, but a business, you're really building equity. And so, hopefully it will be paying you dividends throughout the time that you own it. But then at the end, you could sell it, typically in general, not just in franchising, but in business in general.
Sure.
You could sell it typically 3 times what your earnings are. So if you were clearing $100,000 a year, as an example, you should be able to sell that business for $300,000 plus FF&E, furnitures, fixtures, and equipment. So that's the reason why you do it. Aside from not having a boss, not having a commute, all of those good things.
And that's the biggest thing. I mean, look, the reality is if you have a really good job and you're making money and you decide to go into business for yourself, you're probably going to take a step backwards, your first year and a half, 2 years, but you're doing it to take several steps forwards, because if you were doing it to replace your income that year, nobody would go into business for themselves, right? But you're doing it so that 3 years down the road, 5 years down the road, you have the potential for a lot greater income, not a 2% raise. You have the potential to put people in place, so you're not trading time for dollars. Like your job, they'll say you get 2 weeks, Tom, 2 weeks vacation. That's what you get.
It's not Christmas week.
Right. And so with the business, you're hopefully putting it in a position where you don't have to be there all the time. And then at the end, that the less income you took at the beginning, hopefully you've turned your business into a success, and now you're cashing out and you've got some significant money at the end. But you got to go through that pain. If you're going to leave your job and go full time, you got to go through that pain early on to get the gain, down the road. So
I'm laughing only because I'm thinking about when I was a brand new subway conductor. You would pick the runs that you would get, and you pick your days off, and you pick your vacation for the upcoming year. And I remember my first time going to pick my stuff, I had Tuesdays and Wednesdays off, and the guy said to me, "I hope you like to ski." And so I had like a week in February or something vacation.
Right. That was your week off. That's hilarious.
That was my week.
That's what you get. Yeah.
Period.
Well, I knew I wasn't. Let me ask you about the subway, because did you leave your job to run a business, or did something happen with the subway? Like I got into business because of 9/11, and there was a downsizing of this particular company I was with, and they basically got rid of the franchise division, and so that's how I got into franchise, to start with. But did you actually left on your own accord, right?
I left the the government job with the pension and the whole thing, benefits and all, to follow my dream of business ownership, and it worked out really well, because I bought it in 2000, and in 2005 I had 3 strong locations open and operating, and somebody bought me out, and I was literally able to semi-retire at 41 years old.
That's awesome.
And so it's like the American dream. I worked my butt off. Don't get me wrong. There was a lot of 12-hour days in there. There was a lot of nights and weekends because we did a lot of special events like concerts and stuff. We did the NHL Islander games, which is, and we did also the Nets. I know you're a basketball guy.
Love the Nets.
We played the Net. We did Smoothies at the Net games and the Nassau Coliseum when they used to play there.
That was probably pretty fun. I mean, I'm sure it gets old, but it was probably pretty fun, like giving out smoothies to people, or, you know, when you were, I know you weren't working it all the time. You were like overseeing it, but, you know.
Yeah, no, I used to love going, especially the concerts. Because I'm a music guy, not really a sports guy. So we had Jones Beach Amphitheater, which was an outdoor theater literally on the Atlantic Ocean in Long Island. And, you know, they would do 40 to 50 concerts a summer. It was literally 9 minutes from my house, door to door. And we would get to be there for all the concerts. And then when intermission was over, we would shut down. And we would clean up, count the money, and then we were allowed to go in and watch the show.
That's awesome.
Which was great. And then I ended up, it was a Clear Channel, now it's Live Nation venue. I ended up becoming friendly with the people that ran it. And I got, you know, tickets to go to shows all over the city, just all sorts of perks and stuff. So there's so much more. And some people that I met back then, I'm still in touch with. People that used to work for me are now married. You know, they worked for me for their summer between high school and college. And now they're married with 2 kids. I mean, it's just amazing. One couple actually met working my business.
That's so cool.
Now they're married.
If it wasn't for you, they wouldn't be married.
If
for Maui Wowie.
You and Maui Wowie. All that stuff, right? If Maui Wowie didn't hook up with franchise, when you look backward, I mean, Steve Jobs said it the best. When you look backwards and connect the dots, you realize life is amazing.
So I'll tell you, and I did one Maui Wowie deal in my whole life. And the person did really well, actually. 18 years ago, I did my first Maui Wowie deal.
Wow.
It was my first deal ever. It's the first deal I ever did in franchise. So I did a lot of business with the Athlete's Foot over the years, but it was my first deal I ever did in franchise with Maui Wowie. They did well. I just, for whatever reason, it didn't fit, you know, other people. But it's really interesting that, like, it goes, you know, all the way back, spans all the way back to that time. Yeah,
they're not even in the inventory anymore. I know the president and the owner sold the business 2 or 3 years ago. Now he owns Teriyaki Madness, which also does well. But, yeah, long stories there, man. Good stories, some crazy stories, and some not so good stories, too. Not everybody did well at Maui Wowie because it was a special event type situation. You didn't have a store. You had these tiki huts on wheels that you had to – it was on the onus was on you to get them into different spots, whether it was a street fair or for me, like I had the Jacob Javits Convention Center. It was like the flagship for the whole company. We did extremely well there.
See, that's the thing about a business like that, too. Like, you think of that and you know, somebody might go to one of your events and say, oh, I really like this. I want to buy the franchise. Even if it's not just because of the smoothie. Maybe they just love the idea of being in the events and the hustle and bustle. But what they don't realize is that you have to be the one, because the company might do their best to try to help you get in locations, but, you know, they can't necessarily do it all for you. And so if you're a shy person, if you're not willing to go out there and, you know, beat the bushes and get the best locations, you're going to struggle with that business. And so that's interesting to me too, because I don't know, you know better than me about how good Maui Wowie ran and operations and things like that. But you were very successful because you hustled. And there are other people that probably weren't very successful because they didn't hustle. You know, they wanted the location to come to them. And that's not the type of, there are businesses that might fit somebody like that better, but if you're not going to get out every day and work on getting into the best locations, you're going to have a tough time with that.
Well, so well said. Absolutely, Jeff. And so, and by the way, when I do my like disc profile or my Myers-Briggs personality test, it says don't be a business owner or a salesperson.
Right.
But the fact of the matter is, it was my baby. I wanted to do it. And that's what made me successful. And that's what is really the big difference in franchising or in business in general, is that you can make it happen for yourself. I'm what I would refer to as a situational extrovert. I'm really introverted. But when I got to put food on the table, I get my butt in gear and I get out there. But really quick story I got to share with you on this topic. I think it really drives home the point. We're in the smoothie business. I think it's like 2002, 2003. We're doing great. We have really good friends. They come and they visit us at the location. And there I am, almost like Tom Cruise in Cocktail. I've got a Hawaiian shirt on. I'm making smoothies, blenders flying, and like having a ball. Got reggae music playing in the background. I mean, it's cool. And these folks went out and bought a Maui Wowie smoothie franchise in another state for themselves. And I was the number one franchisee at the time in the whole 200-unit system at that time. And they just saw like things were going great. I bought a new car. Everything is like really cool on the outside. They bought the business, and within a year, might have been less than a year, they were out of business. They walked away from it. So why? What happened? What they didn't see was me at the fruit distributor at 7 o'clock in the morning on a Sunday.
Yeah.
The back end of the business, which is where the business really happens.
Absolutely.
So people have to take it to heart and understand really what it takes to run a business. Most people don't know what it takes. Right. It's not easy. If it was easy, everybody would do it, right?
Right.
But
it's not like Cheers. You walk in, Norm, and
right.
Tom, hey, I'm here to make some smoothies for you, right? It's
right. It's not that. Not by the long shot. But there are really good fits for people that will be an easy transition where you could translate your skills from your business, corporate America world and translate it or transfer it into your own business model, which is a franchise. And a franchise is just a business with training wheels. So you're plugging into their system, following the blueprint, and hopefully riding that bad boy to success. But you're working your butt off.
Well, the franchisor, and this is what I tell people all the time, there's obviously some franchisors are better than other franchisors, maybe in terms of support or what have you. But if there's a successful system, and there's a lot of people who are successful in the system, the franchisor is not going to run the business for you. They're giving you the system, and the support that they're giving you is how to run that system. It's not how to go get the business. Let me run it for you. Let me do the work for you. And so I think people, sometimes forget about that the best franchise, McDonald's, if I would fail if I ran a McDonald's because that's not my type of business, but the best possible franchisor there is, if you're not a fit for it and it's not a good business, you're going to fail, basically. And that's the key to take away. And when I'm working with people, I say, listen, I want you to call 5 to 8 franchisees, and I want the majority of them to be happy. Hopefully, you don't want to have one happy one and 7 unhappy ones. But if you had 6 happy franchisees who were doing well and 2 that weren't, and everybody's got the exact same tools, the exact same toolbox, then does this system fit you? Maybe it's the toolbox isn't right for you, but it's a good system, and those 2 are more like you. Or, are those people knuckleheads and shouldn't be in business for themselves, maybe, because it's working for these other 6. If it's working, like I said, for 2 or 1 and not, 7 of them, then you don't want to be the lucky person. But just like anything, like any job, like any school, any sport, you're going to have 20% of people that are superstars you're going to have 50 to 60% of people that are average, a little bit above average, a little bit below average. You're going to have 20% of the people that aren't very good at all. And you've got to determine, where you fit in, with that, and really do an honest assessment for yourself. And that's what we try to help people do, basically, is that honest assessment. So
Right. We just really are facilitators in the process, but we help you kind of accelerate it and not have it overwhelm you. And I was just talking to a guy this afternoon. He's like, yeah, but he got my name from somebody else who I spoke with in 2018. And he said, I'm on the internet. I'm like, I can figure this out. And all of a sudden he said, I woke up. I was like, I can't figure this out. How do you know what's good, what's not? He says, if I feel like it's just one big sign saying I'm a sucker and rip me off.
right. It's overwhelming. I mean, you literally could spend your whole life just looking at franchises, trying to find a franchise that's the right fit for you, because there's thousands of them, out there. And I can almost guarantee most of them aren't going to be the right fit for you, so,
Absolutely.
That's the key. And it's, it's a process. You don't want to just get excited and just jump into it. You want to get it, like go through a process and really learn about the opportunity and learn what your role is going to be, and then talk to a bunch of franchise owners and make sure the support's there and the system, not just get enthusiastic because it was a good smoothie and I'm jumping in, basically.
Right.
So
true. So true.
This
is great, Jeff. I really appreciate your time on this. This is some great golden nuggets.
Yeah.
Really good stuff. So if you had like parting words of advice, or if somebody's listening and they're thinking about looking at a franchise, what would be your advice to them right now in this moment?
Well, I think that using a franchise consultant is a great way to go. But if you're thinking about opening a business, just make sure that you give an honest assessment of yourself. Make sure that the roles that are needed to be successful, the main things for franchisees to be successful are the things that you're very comfortable doing and you're good at and you excel at. And then the second thing I would tell somebody is, whatever you do, don't go into business undercapitalized. It's the number one reason people fail, in my opinion, because if you have enough money and you start out slow, you can correct your mistakes, keep going, and grow a business. But if you open up your, hamburger shop and every penny went into opening it up, and for whatever reason, it starts out a little slow, you still got to pay your rent, you still got to pay your debt service, you still need to market, you still need to pay your employees. And you just got to make sure you have enough working capital to make it work. And I think that's one of the things that, we try to do is hook people up with funding companies and things of that nature to make sure that they're, going into business adequately, basically. So.
Right. Yeah. That number one reason.
What do you think? I appreciate it. What do you think the key is?
The key is kind of along the same lines. Like, you don't want to become infatuated with a franchise and just feel like, oh, this is the one for me because I love hamburgers or I love donuts or whatever. A lot of times people come to me and they're like, oh, I'm an accountant, so I should buy an H&R Block, right? Actually, no. One thing you don't need is H&R Block because you're already an accountant. So you got to be careful about that. Just don't become infatuated. The hottest thing out there is probably not the right thing, no matter who you are. Because if you think about franchising does not create the wheel. Franchising finds the niche and then systematizes it and then rolls it out across the country. McDonald's did not invent hamburgers. Amco did not invent transmissions. Planet Fitness did not invent working out. They just figured out a way to do it better.
Yeah.
And so if you think like, oh, I'm going to get into the next hot cannabis franchise or the next hot acai bowl franchise, probably not.
Yeah. I think that's great advice. I really do. One last thing on that, because you mentioned the accountant and the H&R Block. I think I work with a lot of like IT professionals, and they all want to look at the IT, consulting franchises. And I always say to them, like, do you enjoy business development? Not really. That's not my specialty. Okay. Do you like managing teams who are doing, well, no, I'm just really good with technology. And the IT companies don't want you because they're not giving you jobs to do. You've got to go out and, get customers, and then you've got to, hire staff to do the work. If you're doing the work, you're not growing the business. And so that goes back to exactly what you said is, if you're an accountant, you probably don't need H&R Block.
So now you make me think of something else that I want to say before we end the podcast, is that I was working with a guy last week, and he's looking at, a business opportunity. A business opportunity is not a franchise. Right. It's kind of a in between a business and a franchise. You pay a fee, they give you a website or something, but there's no royalties, there's no support. That's it. You're done. You use your own name. You don't use their name.
Yep.
And he said, yeah, but they got this powerful marketing where they're going to give me the customers. And then my job is just to consult with them. And I said, you got to ask yourself a question. If they have this great marketing system, why would they need you? Why wouldn't they just hire a guy and say, do the service that they do, and not have to go through this whole rigmarole of building a license agreement and all that kind of nonsense? Think about it. The franchise company is not getting you customers. That's what you're there for in your community, to either use your Rolodex or use your marketing skills or your connections or whatever it might be. They do help on some accounts, and in some franchises they have national accounts where you automatically get a bunch of accounts when you sign up. But that's not your bread and butter. That's just icing. You really want you got to really be able to do business development, or you got to be able to talk to people.
Yeah. I really think that's the key in a B2B franchise. I've just seen too much. People like B2B franchises because they're coming out of the corporate world and there's some low investment opportunities. And I love a lot of B2B franchises. I think there's some great ones. But what I tell everybody all the time is you have to be willing to go out and get the business. That's going to be your primary role early on, because if you're not going out and getting the business, or you don't like that aspect, you're going to struggle. Maybe we should look at a B2C franchise where it's more, marketing driven versus business development, driven.
Right. Yeah, that's great advice for somebody, because when you think about it, if you're looking at a business to business opportunity, a B2B, whatever it is, let's take commercial cleaning as an example, great B2B concept. Somebody's already cleaning the office, right? Your job is to go there and prove why you're better than the next guy.
Right.
So it's like an incumbent sale. You got to move that guy out of the box so you could get in. That kind of sale is not for everybody.
No, that's for sure.
With the right franchise, they have marketing materials that go out in advance and they warm it up for you or whatever. But still, it's going to be up to you to get in your car, drive to that location, and speak to the building owner or the building or the business owner or whoever it is, and sell yourself. And
for sure. And, that's not a bad thing. That just means that that if that's the kind of business that you want to be in, then
exactly right.
This is what you're going to have to do to make it successful. And if that's not right for you, do something else.
Basically. Right. It's not good or bad. It just is what it is. And you need to know that before you get into that franchise and drop a bunch of money on it. That's
right. And it doesn't mean the franchise isn't a good franchise. It doesn't mean they might have wonderful tools and support systems and things like that, but it's still in that type of opportunity, in a B2B opportunity, it's still at the end of the day, you have to go get customers, and if that's something you're good at, that's great, because there's good options. So it's like you and I could do this all day, because
right.
over 18 and 15 years, so many stories, unbelievable. But I love the fact that you, to me, I think a lot more courageous than I did. I mean, I was very nervous when I made my investment, which we talk to people all the time about anxiety, because it is, when you get to the end, there's a lot of anxiety, and you you have to gather all the facts and do your homework and be able to make an intelligent decision. But, even someone like myself, I had anxiety, so it's totally natural. And that's what I do every day. But I even think what you did, giving up your job and going out and doing that is amazing. And one other point that I'm going to say about it as well is that business wasn't your only business. And so you knew, I got to get out of corporate America. You went and you did a business. You were successful with that business. Then you did another business and it wasn't quite as successful, right. But it led you to franchise, where again, you've been very successful. And, if you had stayed in your job, you would have been miserable forever. And you were willing to take the risk. And that's another thing I tell people sometimes is your first business doesn't have to be, it doesn't have to define you. It doesn't have to be, the business that, oh, I'm buying this business because I don't have $1 million to buy this business. Well, that's fine. First of all, you don't need $1 million to run a really good business, but you could do this type of business today, build it, run it, make it successful, sell it, or continue, put a manager in place, and then go, do another business. Your first business doesn't have to be your last business, but you need to take that jump into the first business to get there, basically.
Right. You need to take that leap. I share with everybody, your choice in franchising is not the choice between franchise A and franchise B. You heard me say this before. Your real choice is the choice between uncertainty or unhappiness.
I love that quote, by the way.
Thank you. And most people choose unhappiness. That's unfortunate. Our job is to help you choose uncertainty, because that's where magic happens. That's where you're going to change your life, and that's where you're going to impact people around you like you can't even think and fathom at this point in your life. But Jeff, I want to thank you so much for your wisdom. How could somebody get in touch with you if they want to pick your brain a little bit?
Franchiseguidance.com. So my website is franchise guidance, www.franchiseguidance.com.
Franchiseguidance.com. And it's Jeff Shafritz. And we both work with Franchoice, the back end of both of our businesses. And this is the Franchise Academy. My name is Tom Scarter. Thanks for listening in. And stay tuned for our next episode coming up right after this. I know you'll get a lot out of it. Thanks so much. And Jeff, we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Tom. Appreciate it.
This has been another episode of the Franchise Academy Podcast. For more info, go to our website, thefranchiseacademypodcast.com. Remember to subscribe to Tom Scarta's YouTube channel for educational videos on franchising, education, insight, and inspiration.